Welcome to the Gaudium et Spes podcast, where every other week we bring you Catholic teachings and stories of faith from people throughout the Diocese of Pensacola-Tallahassee. Now, here are your hosts, Susanne McNinch and Chez Filippini.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Gaudium et Spes podcast. If you haven't had a chance, please check out our last episode where Bishop Walk did another teaching series, this time on the Holy Days of Obligation, or as he calls it, Holy Days of Opportunity. It really was a great episode. But today we're back in the studio and we have two very special guests with us. We have Miss Jennifer Haines and Mr. Chad Cage they are both teachers at the Sacred Heart School here in Pensacola. Welcome, Jennifer and Chad. Great to have you guys here with us.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Chaz, they've got a wonderful story and a wonderful pilgrimage that they did this summer, and I can't wait to hear all about it.
I'm repping the Pelicans gear today. And there's a little bit of a home field kind of a bias here, guys. But we swear, guys, it's not just because it's Sacred Heart and it's amazing. But this pilgrimage we're here to talk about is a unique initiative that's I don't think ever happened before in our diocese. I've never heard of it, where a faculty was invited to go on pilgrimage together to deepen their sense of the Lord's call in their life, the school, just experience the beauty of what the Sacred Heart is about. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So thanks for being here. We always start out with the first line from the document that this show is named after, which is the joys and the hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the men of this age, especially those who are poor or in any way afflicted. These are the joys and hopes, the griefs and anxieties of the followers of Christ. So we always invite followers of Christ on as guests. So anything going on, Ms. Haines? And you'll forgive me, guys. I'm going to refer to Mrs. Haines has taught two of my children. Jennifer, anything going on right now? Joys, hopes, griefs, anxieties?
I think a little bit of all of that because it's the beginning of the school year. We have new children in our classrooms. We have lots of learning, lots of meeting and greeting the children where they are. So there's a lot of joy, but also a little bit of, nervousness just because it's the beginning of the year, nervousness for the children and for myself. So I think it's going to be a great year, but that's kind of where we're at in the first 12 days of school.
Good. Yeah.
And how we don't have to. This is not your first year teaching, but you're still nervous. You still get anxious over this stuff.
Yes,
crazy.
Yes, it's amazing, but it's good. It's all good.
Chad, what's going on with you?
A little bit of both joy and anxiety, I guess. Same thing that Jennifer said. Joy is starting the new year, but a little bit of anxiety, getting used to a new schedule, being here and there on both sides of the school. Would take a few prayers, have a little bit of anxiety for a medical procedure next week. But other than that, really excited to share our story and share the trip of renewal that we went on.
Awesome.
Terrific.
Susanne.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. We normally talk about our kids all the time,
We do.
but this time,
We're not doing it.
No, you're right. We're going to give a shout out to my husband, Bob. So we're actually celebrating our 24th anniversary over Labor Day weekend.
Hey.
So yeah,
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you. So no, he's just been my rock, my pillar for all these years, and just a wonderful husband and wonderful father. So yes, I'm going to stop talking, otherwise I will get very choked up. And
we can start planning for the 25th now.
We are, yes, and yes. We already know what we're going to do.
It's a humdinger.
It is. You will be
You
very
can reveal
excited.
later. We'll
I
talk
will.
about it on many episodes to come.
And how about you?
Well, I'm going to talk about my spouse as well. So my wife is just starting a teacher aide job at St. Paul Lutheran, a local preschool here in town, where so many Sacred Heart kids actually go through and then they end up at Sacred Heart. And but yeah, it's just a new world for her. She's previously been a social worker, an adoption social worker, done a bunch of things, but being in a classroom is a whole different ball game, especially when it's not your own kids. So I'm anxious, but also joy-filled for her. And definitely, if y'all would pray for her and all the kids that are going to come through her way, that'd be great. And also my son Gabriel, who he's starting the same week, and all three of our kids have been very polite, well-behaved, I think, right, guys? I mean, I think
Yes.
Gabriel, has a mean streak in him that we've already observed, where he's like not shy about pushing other kids or getting other kids' business, and we're just like, oh no, not him, please no. We've always just kind of sailed through, but so we're a little worried about that, but we'll see what happens.
I can't wait to hear all the stories.
Talk about my kids again.
Yes. Well, good. Well, we're here to learn more about Jennifer and Chad and their pilgrimage this summer. But let's start out by learning a little bit more about each of you. So, Jennifer, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and what eventually brought you to teaching at Sacred Heart?
Yes, I actually grew up here in Pensacola. I didn't go to Catholic schools until 8th grade, and I went to St. Michael's, and then I went to Catholic High when I went to college. And then when I came back, Sacred Heart had a position open for the kindergarten teacher. And I interviewed. St. John's also had a position open for the kindergarten teacher, and I interviewed there too. But then I chose to go to Sacred Heart because I had 2 brothers that were attending Sacred Heart at the time. And so it all just kind of worked out, and it was a blessing. A lot of learning on my end of it, having my brothers in the school, and then my own children also attended Sacred Heart from pre-K to 8th grade.
Okay. And so then, from what I understand, you taught kindergarten then until 2020, right? Until COVID hit. And then kind of tell us that story about...
So I taught kindergarten for 28 years at Sacred Heart, and then when COVID happened, my kids left the school in March, as everybody else did, and an opportunity came up for me to go to 1st grade and to loop with them. I wasn't intending to loop with them. I was intending to teach kindergarten again, but I needed to know that my kids were going to be okay because we ended the year so abruptly in March.
Okay.
So I was able to loop with them to 1st grade, and it was a learning experience for me. It was a learning experience for them. It was probably the best transition because I already knew the children, and it was an easier transition because I was learning the grade, but I knew my kids.
Okay.
And so it was a blessing. So I have been teaching at Sacred Heart for 33 years.
Wow.
Because this is my 5th year in 1st grade.
Oh,
so,
fantastic. Yeah.
And then married kids, right?
Yes.
Because we
Yes.
see
We see
there's
them.
not one Haines
Yes,
at Sacred Heart
exactly.
anymore now. It's a family affair.
Yes, it's wonderful actually for us. So I am married. My husband is Bobby. We have 4 children. Our oldest son is Jake. He is one of the technology teachers at Sacred Heart. I have a daughter named Alexa. She is volunteering to coach at Sacred Heart this year. My daughter Emma is an aide and is in charge of our extended care program. And then my youngest daughter Hope just started working at extended care too. She's 19 and she's a student at UWF, and she is now at Sacred Heart too. So almost they're all there in some capacity. So it's wonderful. I'm just blessed that they were able to come back and be a part of the community that they grew up in. My son was in the first pre-K class that Sacred Heart had.
Oh, wow.
So it's a good place.
I love it. That's great. Well, how about you, Chad? Where are you from originally? And
Okay, yes. I grew up in the Midwest in Columbus, Ohio, and went to a Catholic high school. I belonged to St. Paul Parish in Westerville, but then commuted down when I was in high school to St. Charles Prep, which was an all-boys Catholic school downtown Columbus. When I was a senior, my father was looking at a job down in Texas, and so I looked at colleges, undergrad down there, and went to Southwestern University in Georgetown. Did some coaching, stayed on there, coached tennis at the university level for 6 years, and kind of have been back and forth between the Panhandle of Florida and Georgetown. Went back in 2013. I had finished my master's in at West Florida, worked on exercise science, did a little bit of volunteer coaching there with their men's and women's tennis teams. So been here, though, love the Panhandle of Florida. My wife was born here, Kim, and she works and really supports me and everybody at Sacred Heart, and have 2 daughters, Ella and Abby, and Ella's a Catholic, and this year's a little bittersweet because it's our last first day of school with Abby. She's an 8th grader, so she'll graduate in the spring. So,
wow, terrific.
I want to do a tennis tangent right now and ask what awaits us after this era of Djokovic and Federer and Nadal, and is it going to be the Sinner and
who's going to take their place? It's going to be hard, but there are quite a few, really talented people, top 50 that, who's going to take their spot. Oh, that's hard to say.
You don't have to say.
They can stay as healthy and, as strong as they played. Yeah. That's
interesting. That's cool. Well, we're not here to talk tennis, right? We're here to talk about what's officially titled, we found out in the pre-show, the Pilgrimage of Renewal in the Sacred Heart. So if Chad or either you or Jennifer want to take us through the idea, what is this pilgrimage? Was it just kind of like, hey, our priest is going, so we'll all just kind of go with, or something like that? What is the genesis and the purpose of this trip as you signed up for it?
Okay. I'll try to begin. We began actually a little bit before the school year last year, 2023, and the trip was discussed when Father James and Dominique Baracco came back from the trip. They mentioned these sites that they visited that, are possibilities for us to walk in the ways of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And they told us there was a budget there to send, I believe it was 10 people at first, and I believe more than 10 people applied, and spouses included. Spouses their travel wasn't exactly paid for, but they were able to stay with us, and so we applied. We did have to sort of apply or, write a little bit about our background and our interest and, what's going on in our life and how this trip would have meaning in our life right at this point as Catholics. And so, from there, it became, titled, I guess, the Pilgrimage Renewal for faculty and staff at Sacred Heart. And we just began preparing. It took a year, and of course, I want to just say how privileged we were for Dominique Baracco, Father James, Dominique's husband Tom, everything that went into planning this. I mean, I just can't imagine. I just was overwhelmed, for sure, grateful what Dominique put into planning every stop, there was no sitting around. We did have some time to, walk around and do our own thing, but just everything was planned to the T, and these sites were just overwhelming in beauty. And so I don't know if you'd add anything, but quite grateful for sure.
Nice.
This was like the Baracco tour company.
Yes.
Yes. You didn't have like a tour guide with yellow hats or something like that.
She was our tour guide. And Mrs. Baracco was amazing. She knew, and she speaks French, so she was very fluent in helping lead us in the right direction of everywhere we needed to go. Mm-hmm. If we had any problems, she was literally right there to walk us through what we might need to know. Right. But to just the whole experience, I think when we did meet as a faculty and we talked about it, I don't think any of us really knew what to expect, because it is something new. Mm-hmm. And I think maybe it was kind of an abstract thought for a lot of us to think, oh, okay, well, all right. And then the more it became real, it was like, oh, this is really something that is an amazing opportunity to be able to do, especially with a group of people that you work with. Mm-hmm. And we've worked together for quite a while. And so it was an amazing opportunity for all of us. We did write little letters to explain ourselves, basically, mm-hmm. and what it meant to us, and what it would mean to us. Mm-hmm. And I think that was an important part of the step. And then when we were told that we were able to go, it was like, oh, this is really happening. Right. And so it was an amazing surprise. We use the word surprise a lot on this trip. Mm-hmm. Surprise. Yeah. So it was an amazing surprise for us.
Oh,
and just to clarify, so Jesus from Israel, his Sacred Heart was from there too. What's the France connection here, as far as just there's the revelations of Saint Margaret Mary Alacoque, I think, mm-hmm. is this kind of. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So there's some spots along the way. Maybe take us in the travel, those Sacred Heart moments and everything.
Okay, I could go. We flew into Paris and arrived in the morning on a Monday morning, mm-hmm. and immediately started our tour van southeast, and stopped in Nevers, the town of Nevers, and that was a spot where actually Saint Margaret Mary ended up her cloister. She had been in a town, the next town that we visited, Paray-le-Monial, or Monial, sorry, Paray.
Nice.
And but she, after all her apparitions in her lifetime, I think she maybe wanted to get away from a little bit of that city and just the attention that she brought, and so she ended up. I'm pretty sure it was the cloister. St. Bernadette as well. Yeah, they also had in Nevers a part of the rock that was in the grotto at Lourdes, which we later visited. So after Nevers. Bus ride over, I believe, is a little bit east to Paray-le-Monial. St. Margaret Mary had a chapel there of apparitions. But we visited 3 amazing churches there. The Chapel of Apparitions, also a church, a supporter of St. Margaret Mary was St. Claude Colombier, and he was just up the hill from her. His chapel was up the hill. It's just amazing. That blew me away, the beauty of that chapel. And then there's also a basilica in that town as well. Name of that, Sacred Heart, but a large basilica that's huge. Right along the river there. Really quiet French town. At least that time of year. Getting ready, though, for larger pilgrimages to arrive, and including college kids camping out in the fields. And I was very curious to learn more about that. But after Paray, we went south again, at least 6 or so hours in the van, but made it down to the Pyrenees, foot of the Pyrenees Mountains, and southern, just beautiful, a little different feel climate-wise, but just beautiful. That was Lourdes, and walked in the footsteps of St. Bernadette. The first night we got there, we attended a prayer procession around the outside of the cathedrals there, all inside the Lourdes. We'll go into that more, I'm sure. After that, we stayed another day. Got to spend the next day there, tour. We left there, went north to a town called Saumur, Saumur, and that was a beautiful spot along a river. Really fortunate to have a just beautiful hotel in the foot of, just right next to the river, and at the foot of a huge castle was behind us. Restaurant right there hooked onto the hotel, where we had one of our most beautiful dinners, I think, as a group. Broke bread together, a lot of prayer. And we also visited a winery there. We were really lucky, an underground winery. And please add more if you want to about that. But it was just, we sampled, taste tested, appetizers. Some of us bought bottles of wine to bring home in our check-in luggage. And then after some more, we went north to the town of Lisieux, where St. Therese, I believe her relics were there, and her... trying to think how many churches we visited there, but just beautiful, blown away again. But another large basilica, a small church where she was right there, and her with her sisters, and the cloister there. After Lisieux, we were into the next weekend and went east to Paris. Drove along the river and the Eiffel Tower, just saw it from the van. Checked into our hotel, and the next day we visited the Basilica of Sacred Heart, which is very, very impressive and beautiful. Overlooks Paris. Looking west, you see all of Paris and look out on the world. And then the following day, we got to visit some art museums and do our own thing, walk around. So the Tomb of Napoleon, but went to the Louvre, and so that was about it in Paris. And then we flew out after that, day after Paris. Yeah.
So total time, 10 days?
10 days.
Yes.
So, okay, I was kind of trying to follow you along, and great. You saw a lot of the countryside,
We did.
too.
It was
and
beautiful.
A lot
The
of
countryside was
gorgeous
beautiful.
places in France. So, so Jennifer, were you prepared for what you were going to see and expect, or did it kind of surprise you at each step along the way?
I was not prepared. I'm sorry, Chad. I was not prepared at all because I didn't know what to expect. Okay. So everything for me was a surprise. Mm-hmm. And every church, when we went into different churches, when we went to different basilicas, everyone was just as amazing as the next. The stained glass windows were unbelievable, the stories that the stained glass windows were telling. Mm-hmm. Many of the churches that we went into had side altars. Mm-hmm. The basilicas had side altars. When we were in Lisieux, every country is represented in that church, in that basilica, and so, in that cathedral. Every country, and so you could go and see every country have their own altar on the sides, and it was not uncommon for the churches that we went into to have side altars. Which, I mean, for me, that was not something that I see often or at all, actually. And the amount of people that we saw that were Catholic was amazing. For me, specifically in Lourdes, when, like Chad was talking about the procession, we were intended to go to the procession, and we were talking at a procession. I did not know what what procession meant, like as far as like the magnitude of it. And then all of a sudden, all of these people are coming in, and there are people in wheelchairs. There are people that are very sick that are they're taking them in with their wheelchairs, and they're at the front of the procession. They live there in a dormitory type, and they have volunteers that actually stay and take care of them. And they're at the front of the procession, whether they're wheelchair bound or if they're just in wheelchairs. They're the sick, and then there's just people. There are lots of different sisters. Mm-hmm. There's lots of priests. They're just all walking around. Everybody's walking around, and you're all in communion, and you're in one place, mm-hmm. and you're among people who all believe in the same faith that you believe. And they believe in the power of prayer and the power of miracles and the power of Jesus, and you're all in the same place. And there's thousands that are walking this procession with you up to the through with the Mary in the middle of it, because you're at Lourdes, and we kind of started closer to where the grotto was, mm-hmm. and then we walked along in this procession, and it was just amazing in the languages, because there's all different languages being spoken, and we were definitely on the other end of like, okay, all right, because we didn't know the language very well, obviously, but it was an amazing, because we were all there for the same purpose, like we all had the same beliefs, and it was just that for me was amazing, because there were so many Catholics in one place, walking around, talking, and obviously because we go to Catholic school, we're around Catholics, but the magnitude of that was amazing to me. I think when you talk about too, because the apparition that was seen was the Sacred Heart of Jesus, and then that's where we started really. Like, well, when we first went to Nevers, but then when we were in Pere, which I definitely am probably saying that not the right way. That was where the Sacred Heart appeared, and that's where we started following everything and bringing us closer. So that I think is an important part. And the towns themselves are beautiful. The French countryside was. I didn't know what to expect, and it was beautiful. We walked everywhere, and it was just a beautiful experience in that respect, because we were walking everywhere, and we also learned that it's like 10:30 at night, and it looks like it's broad daylight outside, and we're all like sitting out talking and everything, and realize we got to get up really soon, so we got to go to bed. But it was a beautiful experience, and every church, like I said, was the magnitude of every church was unbelievable. The architecture of every church, and to know the history of each one of them is amazing, because it was just awe-striking every single time you went to a different place. You're just like, wow, you can't get more beautiful. Wow. Oh no, you can, because look, you're just as beautiful as the last one that we were at. We took a lot of pictures, a lot of stained glass. We saw a lot of pelicans. in the stained glass. Yes, we saw a lot of pelicans. Of course, the Sacred Heart, which we have a lot of pictures. I know Chad was taking a lot of pictures. I was taking a lot of pictures of, because we honed in on the pelican, obviously, and then the Sacred Heart for our school. But it was unbelievable, the amount that we saw. And so it made a lot of sense for us. We had a tour when we were in Sacred Heart. We had a private tour with Sister Catherine, I believe. And so she was amazing. She took us kind of behind the scenes of everything that was going on, because there's adoration the whole time, but there's people walking all around while you're there in adoration. So it was just, beautiful doesn't even, I don't even know. It doesn't even describe it. It's just.
As you laid it out, I was like, I didn't know the itinerary before. I was like, so start with St. Margaret Mary, the Revelations, right? So then we go to St. Bernadette in Lourdes, and then we go to St. Therese in Lisieux, and then we go to St. Catherine Labouré at Sacré Coeur. So I don't know if you guys want to comment. Did you have moments with these saints, and maybe in their house or their? You mentioned the Chapel of Revelations, where you kind of like a part of their story was like, whoa, because there's some pretty intense stories here with what happened to these women, especially the apparitions with Mary and St. Bernadette and Jesus in the Sacred Heart of St. Margaret Mary. So I don't know. Chad or Jennifer, want to start some of these saint moments?
Sure. I would say definitely Lourdes, the St. Bernadette. I just didn't know that much about St. Bernadette, and just to know that her life was such a struggle in terms of being poor and also struggling with asthma, very severe asthma all her life, and yet she was still found a way just to stay so faithful through the years. And one of the things I liked, I had come across, I believe, a quote after the first apparitions, when Mary spoke with her, was that she said, Mary looked at me as one person can look at a person. So just looked at her like she was a regular person, and this is Mary. You're seeing or believing and talking to, and that just I think just the fact that she suffered so much and gave so much of her life, still was so faithful, believed in these apparitions and helped other people believe. I think it points a little bit towards the charity aspect in the Catholic Church, and it connects greatly with our mission at Sacred Heart and how we're trying to develop the whole person, the heart and the mind, and be, in the humble service to all. And we're trying to have that be part of our students' day-to-day years at Sacred Heart. So her story was just very powerful, of course. And I just wanted to echo what Jennifer said about the prayer procession too, just the overall humanity and the uniting commonality that was there, hearing the prayers in different languages, Latin, Italian, seeing people from all over France, England, Africa, and the quietness and focus of the prayers, the meditation, right alongside a river, just what that means, the rushing water too, and what that means, this beautiful river along this huge cathedral and along the grotto where the spring is, where the water comes out, and people are, I had to laugh one time when I was filling a water bottle up there. And there's some Italian women right next to me, and they're pouring it on their knee, and they're pouring it on their shoulder, and I thought, well, why not? And I put a little on my sinuses, hoping, but to help. But really, it just it made a big impression on all of us, and just to be there too with fellow teachers, teachers that mean a lot to my family, principals, family members, so special, for sure.
Yeah. Great. Jennifer, obviously, it brought you all as, peers closer together. Can you tell us, did you share stories when you came back with everybody? And then how did this experience, deepen your own personal faith?
Definitely when we came back, everybody was asking us, I'm sure everybody on their own level, but how we were affected, what it meant our interpretation of it, again, the word surprise comes to mind. We actually talked about that before we even left Pensacola in the airport. Father James prayed with us, and the element of surprise was talked about. And I think that part of it was huge, because for us, I teach the littles of the school, and I think it's important for them to see that part of the apparitions and the miracles, because they have that true feeling and that true meaning, and the littles really understand that innocence of that belief, and when they hear it, they're like, wow, they don't have the taintedness yet of as they get older, which happens, but the littles totally have an innocence about it. And one of the things for me was that I had told Mrs. Baraka we were going to make rosary bracelets for our first graders, so that they could go to a rosary and that they could have their own bracelet that they are counting, because it gives them a tangible feeling of what's happening, and it makes them part of the whole being Catholic, sure. Which is an important, which is actually very important for all of them to understand. I think for me also, though, kind of going back to what Chad said with Saint Bernadette, we were able to walk the path that Saint Bernadette walked when we were in Lourdes. So we walked from the grotto all the way up to the house where she was living. And it's not a house. It was a jail that had been converted. And it was literally 2 rooms. And there were 6 people, I believe, in her family. And they lived in these 2 little rooms. But we were also able to walk up to where the church she went to. And it was also a magnificent church. But the walking up this, you're walking up an incline the whole time. And you're like, oh my gosh, well, at least I'm coming down, and it's going to be a lot better than going. But she walked that
in wooden shoes,
right, and on the daily. So it's an amazing experience. And I think for me, just being able to talk about that, being able to talk about the different saints with people when we got back, it was almost like we were on fire. We had a little fire burning inside of us to bring back to our classes, to bring back to our faculty, that if they are ever blessed to be able to have this experience, to definitely jump on it, because it's such a moving experience. Because when you're in the churches, and when you're in the chapels, and when you're in the basilicas and the cathedral, you're just among holiness. And it's just, for me, it was very different. It was a different type of holiness, because you're like, wow, this is where Jesus appeared, or this is where Mary appeared. And it just brings a whole different realness, I think, because you're in that space where they were to be able to talk to Bernadette. And so for me, it was awe striking. Wow. And I think also just being in all the chapels and just seeing the different tabernacles and the different, everything. And they, over in the United States, we have pews that have cushions, and over there they do not. They're all wooden. So it was just, it was different. It was like, wow, this is a whole different way of even going to mass. It's different, and you kind of see yourself shuffling around, because things over there are different than what we do over here, and so you're kind of following around. You're not leading, you're following. And I think that's part of the pilgrimage, is you are following because you're looking for something, and that's part of what going on a pilgrimage is. It's a blessing.
It's funny you mentioned my abiding images of you guys as leading, especially the liturgy at mass, is just shuffling kids. Yep. You guys are the shepherds leading the little sheep and stuff. And you find yourself, you go overseas anywhere, and you go to mass, and you're just like, have I ever been to mass before? What do I do?
Right.
Where do I go? What's their communion line policy? I wanted to just you mentioned the littles too, Jennifer, and Chad, you're mentioning kind of the story of hardship. I find, especially with St. Therese and St. Bernadette, when I interact with my daughter, especially our daughter's the same age, these girls were having these experiences as middle schoolers.
I know. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Some other saints are adults in your eyes.
Right.
Those saints they're kids,
right.
And they're having these intense, very intense experiences, especially St. Bernadette, her look. That the image she has, this girl has seen some things,
right.
And has been through some things. So I especially appreciate that element of the trip, given it's a K-8 school. Therese was a little saint when she was 5 years old. And sometimes we have these moments, and I'm not a teacher there, but she's like, what is happening? These little kids are so holy, and they have this relationship with the Lord in a special way sometimes. It's really profound. So, all right. Well, we want to hear, aside from the holiest, what was this meal like? What was the best meal? You're in France, for heaven's sakes. What was the best glass of wine, the best meal, the best vista, if you could pinpoint it?
Well, definitely when we were in Samora, that was the best meal because it was at a giant table with all of us in this one room. I probably have never, I'm not a big steak person, but I had a steak that night and it was unbelievable. It was just unbelievable. But everything there was, I don't know that I had a bad meal anywhere we went, even if it was on the side of the road. Even, you know what I mean? Even, well, and we laughed about this, and I feel like I need to mention it. The rest stops are 5-star restaurants. I mean, just you go into a rest stop and you're like, wow, there's a park and there's an overhang and you can go walking and it's got a nice little grocery store and you're at a rest area. And so it's wow, it's amazing. That part of it is amazing. I don't know that I had all of my food was good. Everywhere I went, it was there wasn't one that wasn't good. It was just different styles. We found ourselves eating tacos one night, eating lasagna one night, but it was good. But it was good.
Yes, I'd say the same in Samur. This table, it wasn't just any table. It was humongous in its own room. And the many courses of this meal and the wine, we were just really blessed and fortunate. The dessert, the huge windows and doors that opened up, looking out on the city. And like I said, there was a castle there, which I later learned was, in French terms, it wasn't much of a castle to them. There's 2 or 3 others and within 30 miles. But this, one of the other husbands, I walked up and hiked with, and with Jennifer's son, Jake, we hiked up around the castle. But yeah, that dinner, the waiter took a nice picture from above of the whole table and all the teachers and family that were there, sharing bread, breaking bread. So it was special.
Wow.
I think our fellowship on our trip too, it was a great group of people. And the fellowship among us was wonderful, and we chose to eat almost every meal together. Because Mrs. Bracco was always you can go, if you feel comfortable, you can go other places. And we were oh no, we're all going to hang together and we're all going to eat together, and we all did. We enjoyed being with everybody, and I think that probably brought us also tighter because we have a connection. A different type of connection than we had before. And we saw, I think, each other in a different, almost like a vulnerable state because you're in a different place. And your heart is exposed more, and you're just more vulnerable to what's going on, and your peers are with you, and being able to see that. So,
and you were led this whole time, a word on Father James is, he's saying Mass, but he's also kind of maybe bringing you a little bit deeper into this whole experience, maybe explain his role, his maybe memorable words or moments with the rector of our cathedral, and somebody who's so present at the school, who loves the school's mission so deeply. Yes.
Absolutely. Father was outstanding. He, of course, because he had been there the summer before, knew all these towns and knew a lot of history, knew a lot of, just everything about, when Jennifer talked about this pelicans and different stained glass, the saints and the popes that had visited these chapels and cathedrals. He was just excellent, so friendly. He was patient to put up with all of us. And come on, guys! I know he probably would have wanted us to hurry up a little bit around the subway, but no, it just that was another very unique, special thing too. I already feel so lucky that our daughters get to have Father James at our cathedral at Sacred Heart and involved in the school. It doesn't have to be that way, and he is so involved in their day-to-day lives and how he speaks to them and simplifies his message on Fridays and masses. It's just wonderful. And we at the Basilica of Sacred Coeur in Paris, the large one. That was just an amazing Mass. He was saying it or helping say the Mass, but he was among 9 different priests. There was 9 priests, and then there were many nuns, maybe 12 or so nuns in the choir, and that was just, I don't know, that was just next level for me for sure.
Okay.
Just hearing those voices in this large cathedral with many domes, hearing it in French, but this huge group of priests and nuns, and then being able to stay after that Mass, after he was involved in that Mass, we got to share a brief lunch there off to a building off to the side of the church. And I believe one of the sisters was celebrating some type of anniversary or something.
50th anniversary. Well, we weren't quite sure on the years because somebody said something and somebody else said something different. But it was definitely like maybe either 40 or 50 year anniversary. They had a huge party for her in the courtyard over there. My one of my favorite memories though too is Father James, also at the same space, and when he came down and seeing people just walking up to him and asking him to bless them, and that was that was just amazing too, because it was, they're coming out of their procession, they're leaving, and he's getting stopped by people asking them for blessings, and that was an amazing moment for me too, because you don't really see that all the time, and I think for me it was just like. He's our Father James, you know what I mean? Yeah. So he's our Father James, and he is wonderful with the children, and he's in the classes too, and he comes to meet with the children. But this was a different view of Father James, because this is now Father James among the people in Paris, and so it's just different. Because he is definitely present at our school, and he comes in and out of the classrooms and talks with the kids, and so he's not a stranger to the children at all. They know who Father James is, and so it's having him there was made it even more special. If I don't know if that's the right verbiage, but it made it more special because he also has a lot of knowledge on history. So he's very good in that department. He can tell you a lot of history. So it was a learning experience for all of us too, I think, because he was sharing a lot of history. Tom Baracco also has a lot of history, also sharing a lot of history. And so that for me, it was like we were the students, and we were soaking all that information up, I think. And it was like a reversal of roles almost for us. Yeah.
And he took a selfie with us on top of the Arc de Triomphe.
Yes, we went all the way to
looking
the top.
towards the Eiffel. That's a rare moment, special moment. It's really cool. But
that was a good one.
A lot of those moments are captured in photos.
Yes, we have lots of pictures.
Posted on Facebook or on the school's website.
Yes.
Yeah. So if you need to check that out, please do so.
100%.
I think it's very exciting. So
this is special. We again, I went to a school called the Holy Name of Jesus, and it's weird. You go to school every day, and it becomes kind of like, I got a Holy Name of Jesus. I got a Holy Name of Jesus. You just lose the sense of the grandeur of the name. You go, I go to the Cathedral of Sacred Heart, and then you're just like, whoa, like all this identity behind it. So hats off to Ms. Baracco, Tom, to Father James for doing something that I'm sure will have lasting fruit and build up our community even more. There's no way. Sometimes we get to the end of this, we're like, we can find you at this website. We can find you at Sacred Heart. If you need Miss Haines or Mr. Cage, they're always available over there. So thank you guys for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Yes,
absolutely. Well, guys, that's another end of a beautiful episode. We will be back in 2 weeks' time. Bishop will be coming back from the Camino de Santiago, and he'll be teaching us in another teaching episode. So we'll see you then.
Thank you for tuning in today to the Gaudium et Spes podcast. If you would like to know more about our podcast, please visit our website, gaudiumετspes.net, or go to ptdiocese.org and click the button that says podcast. If you listen to the audio version from an app such as Apple Podcast, Spotify, or iHeartRadio, be sure to rate, review, and comment. If you watched us on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe or leave us a comment there as well. Thank you for joining us.